MSW Media.
So yeah, now it's clean up on aisle 45 time. And for a long while yet, it is going to be clean up on aisle 45.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 225 of Clean Up on Aisle 45. It's Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. I'm Allison Gill.
Hey AG, episode 225. Man, we're getting up there.
Yeah.
It's Harry Dunn here. Today, we've got a lot to talk about, but the Trump administration has actually impaneled a grand jury to investigate our friend, well, not our friend, I never met her, but Letisha James.
She'd be our friend if we hung out.
If we knew her, she would definitely be our friend, Letisha James. For the real estate deal we talked about a couple weeks ago. We also have some staffing moves in the administration, including Trump firing the FEMA chief and the Postal board appointing a new Postmaster general.
Yeah, I never thought I'd be disappointed that Louis DeJoy was leaving his job.
I know. I'm like,
and we have a federal judge ruling against Trump's January 6th pardons, covering unrelated crimes. A really embarrassing week for Pete Hegseth. We have the arrest of the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, and some Rudy by proxy news. But first, we need to thank our amazing new patrons, Gary White, Katie McGaffigan Morningstar, Michelle Arnold, Mac Red, and Emma Lynott. So thank you so very much for being patrons.
Thank you.
Right. And if you're listening and you're not a patron yet, yet is the key word.
Yet, we love yet.
We could really use your help right now. And you get a lot of cool stuff in return. So if you can swing it, please join us at patreon.com/aisle45pod. That's AISLE45POD. These Trump tariffs are tanking our brand advertising budgets. So it's impacting pretty much every industry, especially these small businesses that we like to work with. So it would really help us out if you could support independent media. Again, patreon.com/aisle45pod. All right, first, I want to start with something I mentioned briefly up there in the comments, because I think that this is pretty, it's good news. And I like to kick off the show with some good news. And this is coming, just a real brief post on Blue Sky from Kyle Cheney. A judge in Maryland, Harry, has said that Donald Trump's pardon of a January 6th guy does not apply to a January 6th defendant's unrelated conviction for possessing illegal firearms in his home. So I'm very glad that a judge in a 19-page ruling has said this. And it concludes this way. Let me just scroll down here and read for you the conclusion. For the foregoing reasons, it's ordered the court concludes the pardon does not apply to Constianus's 18 U.S.C. Title 922 G3 conviction in this court, and the party shall file any supplemental briefing. They have until May 27th to do it. This happened on the 8th of May. So remember, the Constianus guy was one of the January 6th guys who was pardoned, and one of the guys that the Department of Justice under Trump and Pam Bondi was trying to get his pardon extended to some gun charges that he had. And this judge, I think, is the first judge to stand up and say, no, this doesn't cover this. But I could be wrong. Maybe some other judges have done so in other cases. But, the DOJ was applying this willy-nilly and unevenly.
Blanket pardons and stuff like that.
Just like, well, the child porn guy shouldn't get a pardon for his child porn stuff, but the gun crime, domestic violence guy can, because that jives with our wanting to give Mel Gibson his gun rights back. And so we have to at least be consistent in our inconsistency. But I just wanted to get your quick reaction, because this is good news.
Yeah, no, it's definitely good news. And also it comes out of Maryland. So shout out to Maryland leading the way. Great. Go Maryland, the old line state. No, I mean, it's not only is it good news, it's the right news. It's what's supposed to happen. Like you were pardoned for your role on your actions on January 6th, period.
But
and
not
that's it. That's it. Like, but it's typical for them to want to, you give them an inch and they want a mile.
Right.
It's typical. I mean, they should just be lucky that they got off with the pardon for January 6th. And it's that's a whole nother, slap in the face or whatever. But I'm glad that the judge ruled this correctly.
Mm-hmm.
It 19 pages. I just read the quick little top line by Kyle Cheney. But I 19 pages. I would love to. I'm actually going to check it out and see what they go in depth about saying, because 19 pages sounds like a lot just for what makes sense here. But no, it's the right decision. And he was charged with what, illegal possessing illegal firearms, or I believe that's what it was.
Yeah, he's not supposed to have a firearm. Yeah. The Court of Appeals remanded this matter with the instruction that the court determine whether certain pardoned defendant Elias Nick Constianos Jr. received in January 2025 relates and applies to the conviction he sustained earlier in the life of this case. The Court of Appeals has expanded its remand at the request of the parties to permit this court to rule on the motion. The Court of Appeals explained, however, this court was still to determine as an initial matter whether or not the pardon applies to Constianos' conviction. And the court concludes that the pardon does not apply to the conviction of Constianos sustained in this court, etc. And I'm looking to see here, January 6th in the district, he was ultimately charged with 9 counts in the District of Maryland, including several controlled substances offenses. And is relevant here, count 9 charged Constianos with violating 18 U.S. Code 922 G3 because on February 12, 2021 in Maryland, knowing he was an unlawful user of an addict to any controlled substance as defined in 21 U.S. Code 802, knowingly possessed a firearm and ammunition, to wit, 1 Glock 17 9mm pistol, bearing serial number, etc., a Smith & Wesson M&P 15. So he was on drugs and had a gun. And so, that's what Hunter Biden got in trouble for. And they didn't even really were able to prove that he was addicted to drugs at the time.
He just said that he had possession of it or something like that.
So that it was one of those. It was one of those gun charges. And again, those are usually not brought solo like they were in Hunter Biden's case. It's usually, in this case, it was tacked on to 8 other criminal counts.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing. This could have stood alone. Like this case, the gun charges, it could have stood alone. But that's what, like you just said, a lot of times they just tack it on.
That's you 99.999%.
Instead of just trying it separately, absolutely. But this was it could have been, a standalone case, and kudos to the judge for getting it right.
Yeah, I appreciate that ruling too. All right, let's move on here to some reporting from our friend Hugo Lowell at The Guardian, who said federal prosecutors have opened a criminal investigation into New York Attorney General Letisha James after the Trump administration alleged last month in a referral she may have falsified paperwork for property she owns in Virginia and New York. The investigation marks a swift and notable escalation against Tish James, a major political enemy of Donald Trump, who was ordered to pay more than $450 million in penalties as a result of a lawsuit brought by James's office that accused him of inflating his net worth to secure financial benefits. In what appears to be the early stages of an FBI criminal investigation, prosecutors have impaneled a federal grand jury to hear evidence in the Eastern District of Virginia after the head of the Federal Housing Agency, William Pulte, last month made the referral to the Justice Department.
Yeah. And now this investigation has been going on for a few weeks, and there's still no indictment. But it's important to note that the legal standard to get an indictment is lower than the standard to get a conviction. To get an indictment, you only need probable cause. And this goes back to us, you indict a ham sandwich, But the federal rules of criminal procedure require a prosecutor to be able to obtain a conviction and maintain it on appeal. And a conviction requires proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right. So you aren't even supposed to seek an indictment unless you know that you can get a conviction beyond a reasonable doubt. So it's kind of, I've always wondered and talked to a lot of lawyers about this, how come you can get an indictment with probable cause when by the Justice Manual, you have to have a reasonable doubt. You can't go in to get an indictment unless you are sure you can obtain a conviction, which requires a much higher thing. I don't know. But them's the rules. And so if they're able to get an indictment, it will have to stand up to a bunch of pretrial motions for dismissal.
Yeah.
Right? I would be filing this is a selective and vindictive prosecution. But The Guardian goes on to say the investigation appears to be multi-pronged with involvement from the FBI, in New York, in addition to Virginia. The investigation appears to have gathered pace only in recent weeks, with news of the grand jury filtering through Trump's orbit in the last few days of April. Now, the criminal referral rehashed claims touted online by Trump allies that James may have committed fraud by attesting in paperwork in 2023 that she would make a house in Norfolk, Virginia, which she was helping a relative to buy, her principal residence when she was New York's attorney general. Whether the allegations are substantial enough to result in criminal charges remains unclear, Hugo Low writes, but its existence, which had not been previously reported, raises the legal stakes for Tish James in what appears to be the first criminal inquiry into one of Trump's foremost political adversaries.
Foremost political adversaries. Everybody else better watch out. James has dismissed the allegations as politically motivated retribution, which this completely sounds like, and it is. In a letter to the Justice Department last month, James's lawyer argued the residency claim was a mistake and that she had told the mortgage broker the house would not be her main residence. Director Pulte cherry-picked an August 17, 2023 power of attorney form that mistakenly stated the property to be Mrs. James's principal residence. The broker understood this and that Mrs. James was not a Virginia resident, James's lawyer stated.
Yeah, because you don't have to make it your primary resident to co-sign a loan for your niece.
No.
Yeah, and spokespeople for the Justice Department and Federal Housing Finance Agency are declining to comment, of course. In a statement, Lowell criticized the investigations are baseless, adding, quote, "This appears to be the political retribution President Trump threatened to exact that AG Bondi assured the Senate would not occur on her watch. If prosecutors are genuinely interested in the truth, we're prepared to meet false claims with facts." Still, the allegations have gained traction in recent weeks among Trump's allies, who appear to see an opportunity to try to invalidate Trump's $450 million civil fraud trial verdict by challenging James's eligibility to be the attorney general and to advance the possibility of criminal charges. So this isn't just about charging her for like falsifying loan documents, which she didn't do. This is to say, oh, she lived in Virginia and can't be the New York attorney general. Like, it's just so dumb.
This is the biggest thing of literally retribution. This is the biggest case of it right now. Yeah.
It's obvious. The power of attorney was signed by James in 2023 in August, weeks before the start of the civil fraud trial. New York state law requires public office holders to be a resident of the state, and Trump's allies have said that when the case went to trial in October 2024, James should have been ineligible to be the attorney general because she was living in Virginia, but she totally wasn't. So I don't know. It's just dumb.
But that's what I'm saying. So isn't that like, so according to the form, they said that's her primary residence, right? So, okay. So what is their argument then about the form then? If they're saying she was living in Virginia, so isn't there her saying that the loan, she didn't commit fraud then because she was living in Virginia? You see, like they're trying to use one or the other arguments, but okay, which one is it?
Right.
Like which argument are y'all making? Either she did not commit fraud and she was living in Virginia, or she didn't commit fraud. These people cannot get out of their own way. They're the biggest group of idiots. Henceforth, why you do not have an indictment.
Yep. And we'll see. We'll see what happens. Like you said, you can indict a ham sandwich, but obtaining and maintaining an actual conviction is a totally different story. All right, we'll be right back to discuss another ridiculous, corrupt arrest of an elected official who also just happens to be black after this quick break. So everybody stick around. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, it's AG. Millions use CBD from CBDistillery for one simple reason. It works. Over 90% of customers report better sleep, and their clean, targeted formulas help with stress, pain, focus, all kinds of stuff. They even have CBD for pets. Yay. No fillers, no gimmicks, just premium trusted relief for whatever life throws your way. I've tried a lot of CBD products over the years, especially for sleep, but CBDistillery has become my go-to for reliable targeted relief. Their sleep gummies are my favorite. I take one before bed, and within about 30 minutes, I feel relaxed and ready to drift off. No grogginess in the morning, too, just solid rest. And on the flip side, their CBD pain stick is a lifesaver for sore muscles after long workouts. It glides on easy, it smells great, it gets right to work. So I want to thank CBDistillery for sponsoring this episode. You can get 25% off your entire purchase at CBDistillery.com and use promo code CLEANUP. What I really love is that all their products are made with clean, high-quality ingredients, zero fillers, and they have over 2 million happy customers and a 100% money-back guarantee. So it's easy to see why people trust CBDistillery. So if you're dealing with stress, poor sleep, pain, give them a try. You've got nothing to lose, and everything to gain. So for a limited time, again, you can save 25% off your entire purchase. Visit CBDistillery.com. Use promo code cleanup. That's CBDistillery.com, promo code cleanup. One last time, CBDistillery.com, code cleanup. Specific product availability depends on individual state regulations.
All right, y'all, welcome back. Our next story also comes from The Guardian. So much good reporting from them. Hugo Lau is fantastic. But yeah, he is a good friend also. But the mayor of Newark, Ras Baraka, was arrested for alleged trespass at an Immigration and Customs Enforcement ICE detention center in New Jersey on Friday and released several hours later. Baraka was released shortly after 8 p.m. and after stepping out of an SUV with flashing emergency lights, told waiting supporters, the reality is I didn't do anything wrong.
Yep. News of Baraka's arrest at Delaney Hall was reported on Twitter by Alina Habba, the acting U.S. attorney for the District of New Jersey and former personal attorney to Donald Trump. She said, quote, "The mayor of Newark, Ras Baraka, committed trespass and ignored multiple warnings from Homeland Security investigations to remove himself from the ICE detention center in Newark, New Jersey this afternoon." That sounds an awful lot like attributing guilt. Now, because let's talk about this statement for a second. One of the things that really pissed people off about Merrick Garland and Fani Willis and Cy Vance in New York was that they would never comment on an ongoing investigation. And there's a reason for that. The courts have long held we do not try cases in the court of public opinion, and statements like the one Alina Habba made on Twitter can taint a jury pool. For example, when Mike Sherwin, the acting U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia, at the very beginning of Biden's term, a Trump holdover, he went on 60 Minutes in 2021 and talked about how he was considering seditious conspiracy charges for the Oath Keepers. And that made Judge Mehta call an emergency conference because his public admission put the case in dire jeopardy. In fact, Mike Sherwin ended up resigning because Merrick Garland was about to sanction him for launched an investigation for mentioning it on television. Now, no one is really batting an eye at what Habba did on Twitter here, but announcing someone's guilt before they're afforded due process by the prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office is just it's amateur hour. And if this case goes to trial, there'll be a pretty good case to dismiss the charges based on her public statement.
Well, a couple of things there. I don't see it going to trial. Two, right. They want to win cases in the court of public opinion. That's all they want. That's right all they now. Want. Mm-hmm. That's all they want. I mean, they're not even good qualified lawyers. But the Guardian goes on to say he has willingly chosen to disregard the law that will not stand in this state. He has been taken into custody. No one is above the law, Habba said in her Twitter post. Baraka has opposed the construction and opening of the 1,000-bed detention center, arguing that it should not be allowed to open because of building permit issues. Linda Baraka, the mayor's wife, accused the federal government of targeting her husband. Quote, "They didn't arrest anyone else. They didn't ask anyone else to leave. They wanted to make an example out of the mayor." I mean, it's kind of good standing right there. That's a good point. Adding that she had not been allowed to see him.
Now, the Guardian says that a crowd gathered to protest outside the building where Baraka was being held, with many chanting, let the mayor go. And I love this because I helped share this protest as it was developing on Blue Sky. And when federal officials blocked his entry, a heated argument broke out. And that's according to Viri Martinez, an activist with the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice. It continued even after Baraka returned to the public side of the gates. There was yelling and pushing, Martinez said. Then the officers swarmed Baraka. They threw one of the organizers to the ground. They put Baraka in handcuffs and then put him in an unmarked car.
Baraka, who spoke out against Trump's immigration policies in January after an immigration raid in New York, he said ICE agents conducted without a warrant, was at Delaney Hall with Democratic New Jersey Congress members Bonnie Watson Coleman. I love her. She's such a sweet lady. LaMonica McIver and Rob Menendez. The politicians have accused the DHS of reopening the detention facility in contravention of local ordinances and without the necessary permits. It is the largest such facility in the northeastern U.S. and was the first to open after Trump's second term of office began in January, according to the ICE website.
Yeah, that's what the mayor was doing there, was to make sure that it was all legal. Coleman, in a tweet, said the visit had been an attempt to establish conditions inside. Quote, we've heard stories of what it's like in other ICE prisons, and we're exercising our oversight authority to see for ourselves. That's what Coleman said. She also told reporters at a press conference outside the facility that lawmakers had traveled to the facility to see the conditions. Quote, ICE is out of control, she said. ICE thinks it can intimidate all of us, and it cannot intimidate any of us. And we, the people, will make sure that this administration adheres to the rules that separate us from dictatorships and other third world countries.
Other third world countries. Mm-hmm. I see what she did there. In video of the altercation shared with the AP, the Associated Press, a federal official in a jacket with the logo of Homeland Security Investigations can be heard telling Baraka he could not join a tour of the facility because you are not a member of Congress. Baraka then left the secure area, rejoining protesters on the public side of the gate. Video showed him speaking through the gate to a man in a suit who said, they're talking about coming back to arrest you. Baraka, quote, said, I'm not on their property. They can't come out and arrest me. Minutes later, several ICE agents, some wearing face coverings, surrounded him and others on the public side as protesters cried out, shame. Baraka was dragged back through the security gate in handcuffs.
He was outside.
They brought him back in.
They told him you can't tour because you're not a member of Congress, because statutorily members of Congress can show up unannounced to these facilities and tour them. And he's like, all right. And he went back outside with the protesters, and then they arrested him. So Axios has reported that Coleman's office said they arrived at Delaney Hall today at about 1 p.m. to exercise their oversight authority as prescribed by law. After a period of explaining the law to the officials at the site, they were allowed in. A video attached to the tweet shows that Congress members inside the grounds of the center are talking to employees, and other clips show them being threatened with arrest for trespass by uniformed officials. So first of all, I mean, obviously they're racially targeting officials. And what the other thing that I can't square is that they, all of these DHS, Kristi Noem, and everybody went on Twitter and said, you are attacking, because they were saying that the members of Congress, like Coleman and McIver, like body slammed a DHS official. First of all, they did not.
I'm about to say, so where are the charges for that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, where are the charges for that?
But second of all, to have the gall of this administration to go on a social media website and post that attacks on law enforcement officers will not be tolerated is hypocrisy at the highest level, given what happened on January 6th.
Yeah, I took to Blue Sky. I don't know if people familiar, former Congressman Representative Dan Bishop had this to say. Members of Congress and the mayor of Newark committed an insurrection at a federal detention facility in New Jersey today. This was worse than 9/11. He wrote that on May the 9th at 5:22 p.m. I think it's still up. But he what? This is getting out of hand. This is crazy. And one thing that I've wondered, and this is as a police officer or a former police officer, and also now just currently an enraged citizen, are these individuals, these police officers that are showing up with their mask on and doing this and not identifying, they're still subject to the laws of policing and the rules of being a police officer, regardless of who you work for. And misconduct in this sense you could be sued civilly for doing this. Like, listen, qualified immunity, it still exists, and cops use that. They oftentimes operate with what's the word I want to use? Bad intentions, because they can operate under the guise of using qualified immunity. But you're still not exempt from being civilly sued. So
yeah, but Pam Bondi is offering these law enforcement officers free legal pro bono work from the capitulated law firms.
That's fine. And yes, they are. Yes, they are, and they are getting it. But a lot of people don't like what's going on, and right. Civil suits. Civil suits are a lot different than juries versus law. So. I think it's time to these people, like when you see these individuals getting dragged out of town halls and forcibly removed, and all right, you know what? That's fine. I'm going to sue the pants off of you. And they need to do that, because this is getting out of hand.
Yeah, I'm hoping that Dr. Teresa Barron-Pole sues those people in Coeur d'Alene.
Yes.
Because they've all been criminally charged now. Tell me a little bit, just real briefly, before we go to the next break. because this whole thing with these masks, these gaiters, these neck gaiters that they're wearing pulled up over their faces, not identifying themselves, covering their badges. They're not in any kind of a coordinated uniform. We don't actually know who these guys are.
Yeah.
That's frightening. But what are the rules for federal officers? Do they have to identify themselves? Do they have to give their badge numbers if they're asked, et cetera?
Yes, you have to identify yourself as a police officer. So now if somebody starts fighting back and, kicking somebody's butt and everything, then they can't say, hey, I didn't know that it was a police. So if you're fighting and if worst case scenario, just say a person's carrying a gun and somebody grabs them and they turn around and shoot them. Can you be charged with shooting a police officer if you didn't know it was a police officer? So I think it's really important they're not following the law, the rules when it comes to announcing that you are a police officer. Like anytime you have an interaction with anybody, hey, I'm Harry Dunn at the United States Capitol Police. So you have to announce who you are.
Right. Now they say police real big, but do they have to identify themselves personally? Do they have to give badge numbers? Like, if somebody said, I need your name and badge number, do you have to give that?
Our department policy stated that if you are asked your badge number, you have to give it. Now, I know some agencies and policy may be different, but a lot of time, because that is public record, like you couldn't ask them, hey, what's your name? And a lot of people would say, this is my badge number. And that is sufficient.
Gotcha.
You didn't have to tell anybody your name, but you had to tell them your badge number. Because like I said, it is public record. And a police jacket isn't sufficient enough because that could be argued. But if you say, hey, I'm so-and-so with the United States Capitol Police or with ICE, and I'm sure a lot of these rule books are being rewritten.
Yeah.
But the law states, unless I'm misreading it, that police have to announce themselves when detaining somebody, because now the person may think that they're being kidnapped.
Yep. Word. All right. Thanks very much for that information. And, we have more that we need to go over, including a bunch of staffing changes that we used to have a segment on the show called Comings and Goings. It was
there was a lot of those transactions happening, right?
It was right after 2021, right after Biden took office. Like, here's who's out, here's who's in. Yep. And so we've got kind of a Comings and Goings segment coming up next. But we have to take a quick break, so everybody stick around. We'll be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back. Time to shout out some of our Hall of Fame patrons. Hall of Fame patrons are like $10 or more, sustaining membership, really, really help us stay on track, really, really help us pay super high wages and give everybody 401k matching and health benefits. And we really, really appreciate you. So Susan Ashworth, Jana Highsmith, Charles Jones, Artemis's Wolf, David in Brooklyn, Patty B, Mr. Half Speed, Greg Crimer, Greg Robin Smith, a.k.a. Benjamin Franklin Live. Please don't read this on the pod. We don't need a call out. Thanks for what you do. And Joey Merck. Thank you so much, Hall of Famers. We really appreciate everything that you do for us. Again, if you want to join the Patreon family, you can do it at patreon.com/aisle45pod. All right, let's talk about some new staffing changes in the administration. First up from NPR, David Steiner is going to lead the U.S. Postal Service as the next Postmaster General, as the federal mail agency faces an uncertain future under the Trump administration. That's putting it mildly. Amber McReynolds, chair of the USPS Board of Governors, announced the board's appointment at an open session of a board meeting on Friday. She said Steiner is set to start in July. Steiner, a former waste management CEO, has served on the board of FedEx, a top USPS competitor that has collaborated with the Postal Service for last-mile package deliveries in hard-to-reach rural areas and on air transportation. Those partnerships, however, have ended in recent years.
Steiner, who is expected to leave FedEx's board before joining USPS, is now preparing to take the helm of a beleaguered government agencies that millions around the U.S. rely on for sending and receiving medication, payments, ballots, and other mail.
Right.
Right, and other mail, right?
Medication, money, voting.
And voting, right?
Kind of important.
Very important, The board's appointment comes amid concerns that Trump officials remain determined to exert more control over an agency that Congress established to be independent decades ago. After Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick's swearing-in ceremony in February, Trump suggested a form of a merger between the Commerce Department and the Postal Service, sparking a series of protests organized by USPS employee unions.
Yeah, come on, dude. Like, you're going to merge the Commerce Department with the... He doesn't understand co-equal branches of government, separation of powers, like Congress. And by the way, the post office is in the MRFR Constitution. Like it's not just like a law that was passed by Congress, which he seems fine crapping all over. It's in the Constitution. Trump has also announced plans to nominate Anthony Lomangino, a Republican donor, to join the USPS governing board, which currently has 4 postal governors nominated by Joe Biden and 1 Trump-nominated governor who is set to leave by December. With 4 current vacancies, Trump has an opportunity to dominate the board with more of his own nominees. A full board consists of 9 governors, plus the Postmaster General and Deputy Postmaster General.
Yeah. And from CNN, the acting administrator of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, has been fired one day after he broke with fellow members of the administration when he told lawmakers he does not support dismantling the agency. That's kind of wild. Cameron Hamilton, who was appointed by Trump, was escorted out of FEMA's headquarters on Thursday, according to multiple sources familiar with the situation. Quote, "It is at the discretion of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem to have the personnel she prefers," DHS spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin told CNN, confirming that DHS official David Richardson was to take over for Hamilton effective immediately. McLaughlin declined to explain why Hamilton was removed from the post.
Because he said he's not for dismantling FEMA.
That's why. Right. That's about it, right?
The move comes one day after Hamilton defended FEMA during testimony in front of the House Appropriations Committee, saying, as the senior advisor to the president on disasters and emergency management and to the Secretary of Homeland Security, I do not believe it is in the best interest of the American people to eliminate the Federal Emergency Management Agency. That's what he told the committee on Wednesday. And that, my friends, is why he was fired.
Simple.
Yeah. He went on to say, having said that, I'm not in a position to make decisions and impact outcomes on whether or not a determination as consequential as this should be made. That's a conversation that should be had between the President of the United States and this governing body.
For months, both Trump and Noem, whose Department of Homeland Security oversees FEMA, have called for the agency to be eliminated. On Tuesday, Noem reaffirmed that stance when she took questions from the same House committee. She went on to say, President Trump has been very clear since the beginning that he believes that FEMA and its response in many, many circumstances has failed the American people, and that FEMA, as it exists today, should be eliminated in empowering states to respond to disasters with federal government support.
Yeah, you can't do that, girl.
That's not how it works, my friend.
Yeah, Chris Murphy took her apart too.
Yes, he did. That if everybody check that out, that clip was phenomenal. Like I think I watched it like 3 times.
Me too. It was so good. He's like, you suck, basically. He's like, you're awful. You're breaking the law. You suck at everything, and you were awarded 0
y'all go check
points.
that out. Chris Murphy, Kristi Noem. That was it.
And may God have mercy on your soul. Yeah,
I would call it a good exchange, but it was kind of like one-sided. Like
it was very one-sided. Next up from the Washington Post, the White House fired the head of the U.S. Copyright Office on Saturday. That's according to an email acting Librarian of Congress Robert Newland sent to his staff. Shira Perlmutter, that's her name. The Register of Copyrights and Director of the Copyright Office was terminated by email. That's what Newland said in a brief message to employees, according to a copy the Washington Post reviewed. The news came 2 days after Trump fired the Librarian of Congress, Carla Hayden, who appointed Perlmutter in October of 2020. Perlmutter declined to comment on her termination, which was confirmed by a spokesperson at the Copyright Office. And the White House didn't respond to requests for comment on Sunday. So
yeah, and you know, speaking of the Librarian of Congress, she was very loved. Like the Librarian of Congress, that was under Capitol Police jurisdiction too. So Capitol Police are responsible for the Library of Congress too.
So you made sure that all the kids that come in to check out books at the Library of Congress are taken care of. Because, okay, first of all, I'm joking, because Caroline Leavitt, when asked why Donald Trump fired the Librarian of Congress, first Black woman, first Black person to run.
And she's loved there. I mean, people loved her. She was very good at her job.
She was on like year 9 of her tenure.
Yeah.
And because you get tenure terms as as the Librarian of Congress, Caroline Leavitt was like, well, we're just very opposed to all of these child pornography books being checked out by kids at libraries. And I don't think she knows what the Library of Congress is.
At all. Like
the Library of Congress is not a library where people go
we just go in there. Yes. It's by the way,
and you have to be 16 to go in, I think.
They have school trips. I mean, maybe by yourself, but you're accompanied by and it's one of the most beautiful building in Washington D.C. on the architecture is on the inside. So if you got a chance, check it out. Little plug for the Library of Congress. But back to that. In the hours since the termination announcement, Library of Congress employees have shared fears that anyone could lose their job next, said an employee who spoke on the condition of fear and retaliation anonymity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I actually know a bunch of people who work at the Library of Congress. They're all like, we could go anytime.
They're good. I loved it there. They're good. Those are good people there that work there. So
they're amazing. And guess what? Trump appointed Todd Blanche to be the interim head of the Library of Congress. Can he even do that? I don't think the library is part of the executive branch. I'm pretty sure it's.
But it's still, I don't know if it can because the president also appoints the architect of the Capitol, which is under the legislative branch, but it's a presidential appointment. So I'm assuming. I mean, maybe Donald Trump does a lot of stuff. Donald Trump does stuff that he can't do. But I'm not sure.
Well, nobody's going to stop him. I mean, we could talk about how he's not going to be able to. Oh, by this particular law, you're supposed to do that. Like that makes a difference.
Zero chance.
Todd Blanche, who works at the Department of Justice. Okay, so first of all, we had Ed Martin, right? His nomination got tanked. He got moved to DOJ to do 3 different jobs, and if I'm remembering off the top of my head, weaponization task force, assistant deputy attorney general,
and the pardon attorney,
because they fired the pardon attorney because she didn't want to give Mel Gibson a gun again. So now it's 3 jobs. He's got 3 jobs, and so now Blanche is going to also have to run the Library of Congress as a high-level DOJ employee. It's just they don't have a lot of people, but that's how Trump likes it. He likes to have a small handful of people in interim positions that aren't approved by Congress, and I think he'll continue to get away with it because who's going to stop him? The
number one thing is that that it's clear that he can trust, and like they'll do anything, no matter how illegal.
I'll tell you what, though, I'd much rather have Todd Blanche spend time at the Library of Congress than over at the Department of Justice doing damage over there.
This is true. I'm okay with that.
All right, we got a couple more quick stories to go over, but we have to take one last quick break. Everybody stick around. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, welcome back. All right, like I said, we just got a couple of more stories here to share. First up, from The Guardian. Again, this is the Guardian episode of Clean Up on Aisle 45. Exasperated by the turmoil that has dogged Pete Hegseth's office in recent weeks, the White House is going to block Pete Hegseth's choice of his own chief of staff and select a candidate on its own. That's according to 2 people familiar with the matter.
This is wild.
We trust you to be in charge of the biggest military fighting force in the world, but not to pick your own chief of staff. That's amazing. Hegseth has suggested giving the chief of staff position to Marine Colonel Ricky Buria after the first person in the role, Joe Casper, left last month in the wake of a contentious leak investigation that brought the ouster of 3 other senior aides that were Hegseth friends. Like, these are all people who worked with him at like the Concerned Veterans of America, one of the 501c3s he drove into the ground because he was drunk all the time. But the White House has made clear that Hegseth that Buria will not be elevated to become his most senior aide at the Pentagon, casting Buria as a liability on account of his limited experience as a junior military assistant and his recurring role in the internal office drama. Okay, so if he isn't senior enough to be the chief of staff at the Pentagon, why did you put a non-general or admiral in that position? Oh, no, he's too junior in the ranks. But you can be, Pete, you can be the Secretary of Defense. but your chief of staff definitely has to outrank you. Like, I don't even understand
make it
that.
make sense, y'all. Make it make sense. It says Ricky will not be getting the chief position. Ricky would not be getting one of the people directly familiar with the deliberation said. He doesn't have adequate experience, lacks the political chops, and is widely disliked by almost everyone in the White House who has been exposed to him. It's kind of wild. Like, wow. Is he not a criminal? It sounds like this is somebody the Democrats might want.
He hasn't committed to enough crime.
You're not criminal enough for me, you know? Are you
Sorry,
a narc?
you only dragged my drunk ass out of 6 events, where everyone else dragged my drunk ass out of 10 events. So it's not going to be, you got to have more experience dragging drunk people out of events, especially with Jeanine Pirro coming in as the U.S. attorney in D.C.
It's kind of like they think that he's a narc or something. They're like, no, man, I don't trust you. Do this line of cocaine in front of us so we know that you're not a police officer. Like,
you have to say you're a cop if you're a cop.
The White House has always selected political appointees at agencies throughout the presidential personnel office, but the move to block Hegseth's choice at this juncture is unusual and reflects Donald Trump's intent to keep Hegseth by trying to insulate him from any more missteps.
Yeah, like, we'll keep the guy who's also severely unqualified, but we must have a more qualified guy to work for him.
We're gonna put some bubble wrap around you, Pete. We got you.
Oh, man. The intervention comes at a time when Hegseth's ability to run the Pentagon has come under scrutiny, yet they might as well install a breathalyzer lock on his office door. It also runs into the belief inside Trump's orbit that even the president might struggle to justify Hegseth's survival if the secretary does not have a scandal-free next few months. That's not going to happen
at all.
With all of these firings. Now that Beria isn't going to be the guy, unless they give him an ambassadorship somewhere, he's going to start spilling the tea to the New York Times like his other 3 former associates did.
You know it's coming.
Right? Now, the secretary is not expected to have to fire Beria after he agreed to a compromise to accept the White House's choice of the new chief of staff in exchange for, keeping Beria on as a senior advisor. Well, looky there. They don't want him to leak.
Of course. That's exactly what it is.
As soon as I raised the question, the Guardian's like, no, he gets a job.
Yeah.
The White House and the Pentagon didn't respond to a request for comment.
So instead of giving like non-disclosure agreements, they get like senior advisor positions or, hey, we'll make you an ambassador. That's your NDA. That's your non-disclosure agreement.
That's pretty much it. Like, they've been sending, who did they make an ambassador recently? Because he got fired from Mike Waltz.
Yes,
right?
Mike Waltz. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, well, AG, guess what? We got some Rudy news.
What, Rudy?
Well, kind of Rudy news, but it's Giuliani news.
All right. That's good enough.
From Politico, Donald Trump on Tuesday tapped Andrew Giuliani, the son of Rudy, New York City's infamous and former mayor, Trump's one-time attorney, to serve as the executive director of his 2026 FIFA World Cup Task Force.
Oh, brilliant. Is he going to wear that stupid blue suit?
Yes, that thing is hideous, right?
That's all he has. He's only got the one suit.
That's all he has. He's going to be great, Trump said at the inaugural meeting of the task force on Tuesday. I've known him for a long time. Yes, you have. He's a highly competitive golfer, which I mean, really good.
Puts him in a real good position for the FIFA World Cup stuff.
Yeah, right? And he's also a highly competitive person, and he loves what we're doing. End of quote.
What are you doing with soccer, sir?
What are we doing there?
Trump was in his first term as president when the U.S. won the right to host next year's iconic soccer tournament in a shared bid with Mexico and Canada. I really personally think if I were in the World Cup, I would not come to the United States.
I'm with you.
Prior to the vote, the president suggested removing support for countries lobbying against North American proposals. 11 American cities, including Los Angeles, Boston, and Miami, will play host to the World Cup games. So will 2 Canadian cities, and so will 3 cities in Mexico. I love Boston, love Los Angeles, love Miami, kind of. I don't know.
Those are all kind of like democratic cities, though.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, nobody. Like, let's be clear. Morally, I think these players should stay home or whatever. They not participate because,
well, certainly nobody's going to fly in from other countries to watch the damn games. They might not begin.
Yeah, Yeah, that's a damn good point there. But I was just going to say these cities, the revenue that it's going to bring for these cities, which the cities need, the workers need, the communities need. So I feel like it's going to be a tough, spots for the politicians in these towns and stuff. But let's call it like it is. More if it's going to be here, yes, the community, they need and can use the money that it's going to bring in. But
if I live in the European Union, I'm going to go see the games in Canada and Mexico, so I can make sure that I get in and I can leave without getting detained by ICE because I said Trump's a jerk on social media.
And imagine, like you said in Los Angeles. I mean, that's not. I mean, how far is that from the border the Mexico border?
Couple hours.
So, do you think many of them are going to come? No. Absolutely not. There's no way they'll get back. But yeah, that goes to that. More than 5 million fans are expected to attend the tournament from all over the world, according to FIFA. It could come as a boost for the American tourism industry, roiled by a pronounced decline in international inbound tourism. Mm-hmm. Wonder what that is, like we just talked about. Many would-be tourists have been turned off by the reports of travelers being detained at the border. Mm-hmm. But when Vice President J.D. Vance at his meetings indicated that the White House would continue to enforce a strict immigration standard. So there it is. Mm-hmm. There it is. Not even strict immigration. It's like non-existent. Like y'all aren't just strict. Y'all just don't even have a policy about immigration. It's bewildering.
Yeah, I live here, so I'll go catch a game in L.A.
They'll try to deport us after we leave the game. Like, you're going to deport me where? To San Diego? Like, all right.
Deal. But yeah, man, if I lived anywhere else, I would not travel here. Dana, co-host on The Beans, had a friend who lives in Canada and has property here in the United States. And when they came to the border to go stay at their property, they were stopped and asked what they thought of Donald Trump. And they were like, oh, not a fan. And they were denied entry into the United States and banned from entering the United States for 5 years.
That's insane.
For just saying that they're not a fan of Donald Trump.
Those are real life stories, y'all. Like that's real. Like this, unbelievable. This is where we are
German
right now.
Guy who flew here for a conference, detained by ICE, let go, sent back. People sent back. People not allowed on the planes from where they're flying in from. It's like, why would anybody put themselves through that to come and see World Cup or an Olympics for that matter? I don't know. We'll see. Maybe Trump will be like, okay, asylum for the week. Well, we won't detain anyone for, like, I don't know what he'll do, but can't be good.
God help us all.
I mean, I see a horrible international incident where we accidentally detained some team members. Then
what? Donald Trump will say, "We'll cut a deal."
Well, I'm almost like good. Like when Barack got arrested, and then the Kristi Noem or whoever was threatening to arrest the members of Congress that were there in Newark. I was like, do it. Go ahead. You just guaranteed the mayor is going to be reelected by arresting him and raising his national profile. Go ahead and arrest some Democratic members of Congress. They're not going to be, put in jail or anything. So, yeah, go ahead. Dare you.
Dare you. Mm-hmm. And members, if y'all are listening, stand strong. Keep standing strong. Keep it up. People are inspired when you fight. So...
Yes, we are. And we would rather see our Democratic lawmakers like these amazing representatives in New Jersey. We'd rather see them jump in the ring than not fight at all. So
that's it. Keep it up.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you all. Appreciate our new patrons. Appreciate all the patrons. Appreciate people who aren't patrons, who are just listening. Hi, because this podcast is always free. Thank you for being here. Yes, seriously, love you guys. This show is very personal to me. Harry, you're a very good friend of mine, and it means a lot that everybody's listening. So we appreciate you, and we'll see you next week. Any final thoughts, my good friend?
Not much. Let's just see what this week brings us, and we'll be covering all the shenanigans on the bonus episode that our patrons get. Speaking of patrons, no, I got nothing. What about you?
No, I think I've said it all. So I guess we'll just bid you a fond farewell until next week. And we'll be releasing the date that we're going to have our happy hour for patrons.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's going to be like May 23rd. Or even May 30th, but we'll keep you posted, everybody. And until then, we'll see you next time. I've been Allison Gill.
Harry Dunn. Thanks, y'all.
Cleanup on Aisle 45 is written, researched, and produced by Allison Gill, with editing by Molly Hockey. Our art and logo design are by Joelle Reeder and Moxie Design Studios, and our music is composed and performed by Adam Orr. Cleanup on Aisle 45 is a proud member of the MSW Media Network, a collection of creator-owned podcasts dedicated to news, politics, and justice. For more information, visit mswmedia.com. MSW Media.